Welcome back, fight fans. Welcome back. Let's just dig right into it. Derrick James, Errol Spence Jr.'s trainer, comes out and states, I can't see anyone going 12 rounds with Errol Spence and being okay or being the same fighter after going 12 rounds with Errol Spence Jr. Now, let's just break it down and let's just be honest about it. Now, if we look at Derrick James and we look at the type of trainer he is in his assessment, let's take a look at Kell Brook. Kell Brook went 11 rounds with Errol Spence Jr., and most people say Kell Brook is not the same fighter. He didn't go 12 with Errol Spence. He went 11. But he's not the same, not because of the Spence fight, but because of the Triple G fight. And you know, even Errol Spence has to admit that a Kell Brook coming off a knockout loss and a broken eye surgery, walking into a fight with Errol Spence Jr., he had the upper hand on Kell Brook because of that. The fact that Kell Brook had to drain himself down physically to even make 147 after suffering a knockout loss and an eye surgery, you knew you had the upper hand. And at the end of the day, it's not something to brag about. It's not something to say that's my best win, because when you're fighting a guy coming off a knockout loss, who gets credit for that? Who gets credit for that as being a great win? And Kell Brook went 11 rounds and arguably won the first 6. Let's be honest and unbiased, Derrick James. Now, the next thing that Derrick James fails to mention is that every one of Errol Spence Jr.'s fights, especially, Lamont Peterson, Chris Algieri, these have all been showcase fights, so you can expect these fights to go 12 rounds. Then you look at Errol Spence Jr. facing, Mikey Garcia. You're willing to face a guy 2 divisions lower in weight on you, so you can feel like you have an upper hand or advantage on him that's sizable enough so you can feel like you're cherry picking Mikey. And I know a lot of people are saying, no, Mikey called him out. Mikey did call him out, but Spence did not have to accept this fight. Spence didn't have to accept the fight. Spence could have fought Terrence Crawford, but he avoided Terrence Crawford. He told Terrence Crawford to his face he was going to take the easy route. So that's another problem with your argument, Mr. Derrick James, because you're being inherently biased. But I expect that because you're Errol Spence Jr.'s trainer. So you have to understand that the level of competition that you face and someone going 12 rounds with you is not the same if you're fighting low-level opposition. Kell Brook, damaged opponent, and Kell Brook was never an elite fighter to begin with, and yet Kell Brook, low-level opposition in that regard, because Kell Brook was already a damaged fighter after Triple G. He was never the same. Then you look at Lamont Peterson. He had already been knocked out in 3 rounds by Lucas Matthysse, and then Errol Spence got him. You look at a Chris Algieri who had already been beat up and put on the mat by Manny Pacquiao, and then Errol Spence got him. You have to understand that there's a ton of asterisks and showcase fights listed on Errol Spence Jr.'s record, and the hype is unbelievable. Now, of course, Derrick James is going to say he don't see anyone being, being the same. Yeah, no, anyone that would sit up and take a sustained amount of punishment from Errol Spence Jr.'s body shots, who would be the same? Because who's going to sit up there and eat that? High-level competition does not eat those body shots. Terrence Crawford would not eat those body shots. If Errol Spence Jr. was fighting at 154 pounds or 160 pounds, where he physically belongs, because let's be honest and unbiased, he's not a natural welterweight. So if he was fighting in his rightful weight class, he would not be able to hurt these guys because he wouldn't have the same advantages that he has at 147 pounds. So Derrick James, in his statement, it's nice on the outside, but it's not actually factual. It's intellectually dishonest, because Errol Spence Jr. facing lower level competition, maybe that's what he should have added. I don't think that anyone that's a lower level of competition for Errol Spence Jr. would be the same after going 12 rounds with Errol Spence Jr. I agree with you 100%, because let's be honest, low-level competition hardly ever goes 12 rounds with at least moderate to good competition. Look at Deontay Wilder knocking out tomato can after tomato can after tomato can. Then he fights Tyson Fury, the first real opposition of his career. And then he arguably, in my opinion, lost that fight, got outboxed the whole fight, dropped Fury a few times, but his right hand didn't save him. So at the end of the day, if we're being honest and unbiased, when you step up in competition, you are no longer the highlight reel monster that you appear to be. And the reason why Errol Spence Jr. has not stepped up in the competition is because they're trying to build him into a big name and want to make him the easiest fights available. Because, I hear a lot of fanboyism saying that, no, the best should always fight the best. The The best should always fight the best. But when it comes to Errol Spence Jr. fighting Terrence Crawford, no, we need to let that fight build. That's 100% bias. And if you're supporting that, then you're a biased fanboy, because you don't let that fight build. You get that fight going now. That's a major fight. And if these guys, whoever wins, the rematch would even be even larger, because the best are fighting the best. You know, I find it funny when Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder are supposed to fighting, they're saying, oh, the best should fight the best. But then when it comes to Spence and Crawford, no one wants the best to fight the best. They want Canelo to fight the best, but they don't want Spence to fight the best. You have to understand that these Spence fanboys are ridiculous. These guys are groupies and are going to hang on to every word of all these guys are saying. You know, if you look at this guy, She Knows Her Sport, I think that's some kind of channel where the guy looks like Peter Quillen, and he comes out there with this whole biased rhetoric. You can't listen to garbage like that, because these guys are bringing that garbage and that fire. And you have to understand, these guys think with the dumb brain. Because if you think honestly and unbiased about it, you don't see Errol Spence Jr. and anyone going 12 rounds with him being the same after 12 rounds of action. Then that means when you look at everything honestly, you see that Errol Spence Jr. is not fighting top-level competition, because top-level competition doesn't get hit repeatedly over and over. Top-level competition has a great offense and a great defense. Top-level competition makes you make adjustments. And Derrick James, this exposes you as a trainer as well, because if you look at Derrick James, let's break you down. Derrick James, where were you with Jermell Charlo when he fought Tony Harrison? What adjustments did he make in that fight? Because I saw none. I saw you from a corner screaming, get him. Just go get him. That's not a game plan, Derrick. So then, when Jermell Charlo was trying to stop Austin Trump, but he couldn't, I saw the same thing. This guy's making me look bad. Just go get him. That's not enough, Derrick. You have to understand that the training and true fundamentals all start in the gym. And, you know, you have to teach a guy how to cut off the ring. You have to be specific in your instructions. So, yes, we understand that Errol Spence Jr. is your fighter, but you can't believe the hype. Once again, unbiased, as always, is the IBFP. Please share, like, and you must absolutely subscribe.